What is going on, my salty home gymmers? Welcome back to the channel, and today we are going to be talking about the new Amazon machine from Major Fitness. Beside me sits the Drone MaxV. If you're familiar with the budget option drone machines on Amazon from Major Fitness, this is the next installment and probably the biggest and baddest installment in that line of machines. But this is a very unique machine for a lot of reasons. If I had to describe this machine, it's basically a machine that features a lot of higher end functions from more expensive machines and models, but it does it on a lot of budget parts. There's a lot of money saved in this machine. So basically there's a lot of functions on here which are really nice to have and you don't have on budget machines, but it's done in a way that saves money at the factory and saves you money. Most of this isn't a big issue. Some of it we'll talk about, but we have a lot to get through. So without further ado, let me start out with what I always start out with, the assembly. So firstly, assembly for this thing wasn't bad. As usual, my boxes came in great. Major Fitness packaging is always just fantastic. I think this is the 4th or 5th machine we've done from Major Fitness, and we always receive our boxes in great shape and nicely organized and no scratches or damage to any of our parts. Assembly is fairly easy for the most part. You do have a lot of parts on this one because of the style machine it is, but assembling it is not terrible. I will say you're probably gonna need another person for those brackets at the top, as those pulleys fit in there pretty tight, and it's a lot to manage by yourself. I did manage to do it, but I promise you it wasn't easy, and I would have much preferred to have someone there. And as I always say, don't tighten most of your bolts before you're finished assembling. This can cause it to be very difficult to fit things into place. But overall, not a horrible experience. Now, as far as specs go, I'm not gonna get super into specs. This is already a long enough video and we got a lot to get through. But the one specification that I will disclose here is your height of the rack, because that is really important when you're trying to judge that ceiling clearance. So the height of this rack is 85.6 inches. It is a bit of a tall boy, so take that into consideration before you purchase one of these. The rest of the specs can be paused and referenced here. And now we're gonna dive into our functions of the rack, starting with the front rack itself. Now this is a 6-post rack frame, and it is a 6-post rack because you do have a Smith machine on here, and your posts are gonna be 2x2 and 14 gauge steel. 14 gauge steel is just, well, it's just what they're making all these Amazon racks with. There is a few racks and machines out there that are being made with 16 gauge steel. Honestly, you should probably just stay away from them. 14 gauge steel is about the industry standard for a budget all-in-one like this. It's not some commercial grade heavy duty stuff, but it is a functional, sturdy option for a home gymmer. And with that, your rack stability is pretty nice. Not a lot of wobble on here. A lot of what you're hearing is just kind of the parts clacking against each other. You got a lot of weight on this thing. You have your plate stacks and your Smith machine, and there's plate storage on the back, plus your barbell. So you're not gonna have a lot of trouble with wobble with a rack like this because there is a lot of weight just holding this guy down. Another just really positive thing I just wanna say about this rack and just about everything that I've received from Major Fitness is their black coating holds up better than any other budget stuff out there. I've had $3,000 machines from Major Fitness, and I've had $800 machines from Major Fitness, and they always have great coating. And if you guys watch the channel, you know I am a stickler of that, especially in the black paint, because it typically is that flat black paint that doesn't have that extra coating like some of the more colorful racks do. I feel like the front posts are fairly dent resistant, and that leads me to my front rack attachments, which are just pretty standard stuff. They're not quite as sleek as some of the stuff that's on the other racks that we reviewed, but they're okay. You also have your dip bars. You do have that dip bar option and 2 sets of grips on each one. One pretty nice thing that I did notice about the front rack attachments, they do come with a pin to hold them locked into place. So if you like that sort of thing, it is featured here. So yeah, all around front rack just seems to be decent. It's gonna get a thumbs up from me. Now we're gonna move on to what I can't wait to talk about, and that is our cable system. You might notice on this cable coaster, not 1, but 2 cables and carabiners attached to one side of this rack. I got one here, and I got one here. Why is that, you might ask? Great question. See, for a long time on these budget all-in-ones, especially ones that came with plate stacks, a big complaint or debate with a lot of people was 1-to-1 ratio versus 2-to-1 ratio. Some racks were made a 2-to-1 ratio, which meant you felt about half the weight that you selected on the machine. So if you selected 20 pounds on a 2-to-1 machine, your pull would only be about 10 pounds. And then you had your 1-to-1 ratio cables, in which you would select a weight and feel 100% of that weight. So if you selected 10 pounds, you're gonna feel every bit of that 10 pounds. Now, there is advantages to both. I know this is a heated debate out there, and everybody complains about the cable ratio whenever I review a machine in the comments. The advantages of 2-to-1 ratio, from my impression, they're just a tiny bit smoother, but the main difference is my pull stretches farther. I can take that cable out of the machine and stretch it much farther before I top out than compared to the 1-to-1 ratio, which has a much shorter pull before my weight reaches the top of the rack. With that advantage to 2-to-1 ratio also comes a major disadvantage, and that is the fact that your plate stack now is worth a lot less. So if I have a 100-pound plate stack, I'm only going to be able to pull about 50 pounds total. That's it. And that was a big issue for a lot of people when these budget racks started pushing from plate-loaded machines into selectorized categories. So now we have this solution, one of two solutions that are both featured on this rack, but we're going to talk about this one first. So let me explain how this works. I'm sure I'll be explaining a lot this year. If I put my attachment on one cable on this side, that, my friends, is my 2-to-1 ratio. So I have 40 pounds selected, but I only am feeling 20. And like I said, that allows me that longer cable pull, pretty far stretch for my cable. So you can do just about anything on this machine. Now, if I hook 2 on an attachment, that switches the ratio of this cable to a 1-to-1, which means I'm gonna feel 100% of the weight that I put on this machine. I'm feeling that full 40 pounds. I'm not feeling 20 pounds anymore. But with that, my cable stretch now becomes shorter, but that's okay. This feature is more for your lat pull downs and your lat pulls and your rows and things of that nature that require that big money weight. And so now you have the best of both worlds. And not only that, another big feature on this machine that I'm going to talk about, that is going back to what I said in the beginning, one of these features on a budget machine that just typically isn't on budget machines. It's usually on more expensive, higher end models. However, I am seeing it a lot more on machines. This is definitely going to be on all of your selectorized machines coming out this year, is my plate horns at the top of my cable stack. Now, as you can see here, I have these on both sides. So number one, this allows me to make minor incremental adjustments to my cable using plates or smaller plates. Or two, if I max out my cable, well, it's truly never maxed out when I have plate horns on here, because if I max this out, I can just keep adding weight to it. And not only that, it sits beneath a full 100-pound plate stack here, which is broken up into 10-pound plates. But remember what I said earlier. I told you I was gonna get into more of what I was saying in the beginning of this video. This rack is so unique because it has all these features that a higher end machine has, but it does it on big budget parts. And what might that be? Well, I'm glad you asked. So I'll start with talking about your pulleys. And the quality here is just, well, it's kind of all over the place. So your pulleys are aluminum. So very nice upgrade there. But as we've talked about in other videos, you have to have a smooth cable structure first in order for that aluminum pulley to make that cable smoother. And in this case, we do, and they do work, and they do great. However, your plate stack might have been something you took notice of. So you might have already observed this plate stack isn't a steel stack. Basically what it is like a concrete lead like type filling encased in plastic. And this creates a bit of a bulkier look to your plate stack, which I don't really mind. And to be honest with you, I don't really mind these plates as far as the appearance goes and as far as longevity goes. I definitely think these type of plates will hold up over time, no problem. We've had a few plate stacks like this on our channel before. However, a big thing with these plate stacks is they're just not quite as smooth on the guide rods as a steel plate stack. So they do give just a little bit of resistance. And now what you have is pretty much your aluminum pulleys and your good cable structure and this style plate stack pretty much working against each other. And what they pretty much create is just a cable that just feels, I don't know, just kind of standard. Like, it's not the smoothest cable I've ever used, and I don't think you're expecting it to be, but it's also not a cable I really dislike. We've had a lot of cables on this channel that I dislike, and I'm not afraid to tell you that I dislike something. Even though I do feel just the tiniest bit of friction coming from the plate stack, I do feel like it just doesn't affect me at all anytime I do an exercise of any kind on this cable, so I really can't knock it. You just got, I don't know, just a standard cable here. And another thing I'm going to circle back around to here is your plate horns. Here at the top of my plate stack, big features that typically come on higher end machines that are put on here. But as I said, at a budget. So what you have is just kind of a hollow tube that I do feel holds up just fine. I can put just about as much weight as I possibly want on the thing, and I don't feel like it's affecting it in any way. So not a real issue. It's about 14 gauge steel probably on that cylinder, about the same gauge steel as your rack. The only thing I really kind of wish they did do, which I'm really confused that they didn't, is put 2 hand screws in here instead of 1. It is kind of strange that I only got 2 for this machine. I don't know if that was maybe a shipping error or maybe they just need to start doing it, but I do feel like it would be held into place a lot better if I had 2 fastening screws, 1 on each side, and there even is a hole for 1 on each side. I just don't have a screw for it. And if you pull up your selector in the middle, it's also not solid steel, which I typically see on weight stacks. It's also hollow and about 14 gauge steel and just kind of screws on there. So even though we do have these really, really great features like aluminum pulleys and 2-to-1 and 1-to-1 cable switch off in our plate horns, we are still saving a little bit of money here. And you have to keep that in mind. Your Smith machine, which is what I'm going to talk about next, is, well, it's pretty great. It's about what I see on all the other machines. Now, the only weird difference here I see on this machine compared to some of the higher end Major Fitness machines that I've used is your spotter hooks here. They kind of bolt on to my barbell here, which was unusual for me, but I guess I just really don't care. I'm just trying to tell you the differences I typically see because I think it's pretty great for this price. It's a barbell that feels like a barbell. It runs on a track of guide rods that are extremely smooth. My plate horns on the end feel like durable, solid plate horns. And the knurling is really good here and is really good on the bar. It has a great grip and a nice stainless steel finish, and I much prefer that rather than a coating on a bar. I will display the weight capacity on here. There's not much flex in that bar, so I do think your tensile strength is probably gonna be a good deal here. So just a great Smith machine from Major Fitness as usual. Every Major Fitness Smith machine we've received, I think this is number 4, has just been a fantastic Smith machine. Major Fitness is just like the king of the Smith machine when it comes to budget racks. I don't know how else to explain it. I've never gotten a Smith machine that I had issues with out of Major Fitness. Next thing, we're gonna just talk about some outside features real quick, okay? We're gonna talk about your pull-up bar. It has a lot of options for switch-offs, but it has 3 bars on the ladder here on the inside, which is kind of a unique look for me, but it's ultimately to switch off between wide and close. But with having 3 bars there, your close grip will be on the one side or the other. But just a really standard stuff here. There's no knurling or anything fancy or anything like that on it. It's just a pull-up bar, and that's it. And it's nice to have one of those in your garage because pull-up bars and dip stations both take up a lot of space. So it's nice to have these on this all-in-one. They're pretty standard nowadays for all-in-ones. And another thing that's pretty standard now for all-in-ones is my foot plates here for those nice cable rows, and of course my landmine attachment, which opens up a whole new world of exercises for you. Also becoming pretty standard on these style racks. And of course we do have some options for bands. We have 4 on the bottom, and my favorites, 1 on the outside of my pull-up bar for those assisted pull-ups. Let's talk about some storage. You'll see on the back here I have 4 plate horns. These plate horns are actually like rock solid. I actually prefer these plate horns to most of the ones on the higher end Major Fitness machines, because these are just solid rock. They are on the back of the rack, which I never enjoy, but they are solid, which I genuinely appreciate. And of course, the 4 notorious attachment hooks that we see on all our Major Fitness racks, and those 4 hooks located underneath our notorious sign. So you do have some cable attachment storage there, and you do get some cable attachments. That being a curl bar, barbell attachment for your barbell rows and things like that, and your lat pull down bar, which works with your cable function and basically attaches any way possible to your cables, so you can take advantage of that heavy 1-to-1 ratio. But the greatest storage feature on this rack, we're finally starting to figure it out, guys, the barbell storage. And not only do we have 1 barbell storage, but 2, 1 on each side. And that just brings me so much joy. I think we covered it all, but I do tend to fly through these videos when I'm telling you what I think about these racks. So if you have any questions on anything, just let me know down in the comments. Got a lot of other videos coming up very, very soon, so stick around, stay active, stay grinding, and don't forget to subscribe.